because I'm going to paint. It started with my morning because during breakfast I started watching this guy, and whenever I watch his videos, I always get this rush to paint, to do something artistic, to specifically engage in some artistic discipline. Because there's a huge difference between just following some artistic impulse and actually embracing the discipline of art. And that's what I'm going to talk about throughout the stream. But I felt like I would feel frustration if I did not embrace this impulse to paint. So I decided to do it, especially because I have these super wonderful flowers. Their buds just started opening. And by the way, life hack for you: if you buy flowers, trim them to different lengths, because then they will be much more beautiful, much more harmonious in your vase. So that's what I usually do. So these flowers just started opening up, and the composition from my angle will look kind of like chiaroscuro because of such an extreme difference between light accents and the shade around them. So it will be quite interesting project. And I'm gonna use watercolors. An interesting thing is that I bought watercolors from White Knights brand, St. Petersburg. There are companies in Russia that produce art supplies that have huge history. Got my water, a couple of bottles of water, because with watercolors we need a lot of clean water. I hope 2 will be plenty for me, because first we'll start with pencil sketch, obviously. So in the span of stream I might do some coloration, because again, flowers are not so demanding for very precise shapes, but nevertheless we need to do a very good job here. And yeah, let's begin. Have my paper here, and I'll be showing you the process throughout. Got my pencil, fancy pencil. Let's go ahead. Some hair, piece of lint. Hello, whoever joins, please let me know if the sound quality is good. I'm painting today. I'm painting and chatting. I'm doing watercolors of flowers, and I'll be showing you the result all throughout. Please let me know if you can hear me and if you have any questions as well. If you don't know, if you don't follow the title of the stream, I'm a Tantra coach, so I will take your questions regarding Tantra, regarding relationships, burnout, regarding creative pursuits, um, anything it can be, your personal relationships with the world and life, your creatorship. And hi everyone. And I myself going to invite you to this field, to the space of my own creativity, and especially creative discipline, because sometimes from the outside, especially perhaps for beginners, creativity is associated with something quite impulsive. You know, there is expressionist art, there is anti-culture that also is associated with embracing human impulses, certain destructive impulses. But I'm not a proponent of that. I disagree with this movement, because nature, in essence, the power of creativity, creation in general, and nature, how it looks, is when nature takes chaos and assembles it into something functional, into something harmonious. Specifically, the word harmony is something that always finds me. And because I believe and I feel like human mind is a projection of the creation that we observe around us, I think because of that, it's very important to embrace also the discipline of creation. It's one of the, at least for me, and this is what I perhaps would be willing to preach, is that human mind, in essence, gets the highest pleasure from actually taking chaos and making something assembled, and observing the result of our creativity, the result of our discipline, is one of the most pleasant things in the world, in life, in our human experience. And this is the source of unlimited pleasure in life. This is why I make it a centerpiece of my personal philosophy of my program Human Renaissance. And when I work with people, when I worked with children as a teacher, this was a centerpiece, the focus of my work, to find that creative spark, to teach people to seek this higher level fulfillment, higher level satisfaction that becomes a foundation for everything else in life. Because the person who uncovered their creative discipline, person who uncovered this high level pleasure, the pursuit of this high level pleasure, they will never be unhappy. They will never be lost in life. And I think that everyone should, when they raise children, should focus on encouraging and supporting children specifically to learn this discipline, to learn the discipline of artistic expression, of scientific expression, of verbal expression, of basically communicating with the world through at some new, more complex level. I think that's the foundation of very beautiful life. That separates humans from just impulsive, oftentimes destructive, animalistic existence that leads to so many things that make us unhappy in life. So, with my personal pursuit of this discipline, I really love academic art. I don't like I understand the place of contemporary art, I understand its conceptual value, I understand the philosophy surrounding contemporary art. But there is something very special in striving for finding the harmony that's found in nature, striving the harmony that this breath of life that nature gives to everything that it creates, finding some harmony and being able to reproduce it through artistic means. Something about capturing it, something about hitting this harmony is source of such an immense pleasure, and I'm very, very grateful that I had an opportunity to master some crafts, and I'm really happy that I have this at my disposal. It's a really big happiness. So I'm going to start my painting, my little painting. There's nothing grandiose about it. I'm not going to create some grandiose masterpiece, by no means. It's just a little study, just a little gesture of love to the flowers that I have today with me, because they're so inspirational. They live this little life cycle, like a butterfly. When they go through some transformation, I bought these flowers when they were just in the buds, and today they started opening. Perhaps it would be good to wait for them to open up a little bit more, because these are very gorgeous flowers. But I just felt like painting today. Let me see the chat real quick. Wow. Hi, everyone. You speak English very well. Thank you so much, Jerry. A little bit timid to begin because I haven't painted since when did I paint last time? It was probably the beginning of summer 2025 when I painted last time. And I want to show you my work before I begin, actually. Let me see. This is the work that I painted back then. So yeah, that was my most recent work. And today, little flowers. I will be checking the chat from time to time, and you can just stay in my field, ask your questions, and I'll be showing you my work through process. Tim. Hello, Tim. Nice to see you. Let me know how you're doing. I'm painting here. Not painting yet. Drawing. The sketch first. You know, when you start painting something, you get such an intimate connection with the object. The things that you typically don't notice. Like, for example, in the flowers right now, you know they're about to bloom. They're tiny little things, like little lacy things on the edges. It's so gorgeous. I think I'll move it a little bit. Hello, Kiva. I'm just painting today and answering questions. So if you want something to if you want to discuss something, let me know. But I felt like, you know, I wanted to go live and I really wanted to paint. I couldn't choose between the two. I would feel unhappy if I missed on either activity. Still unhappy with the placement of the flowers. I don't know why I'm drifting to the right. I usually never have a problem placing objects on the thing. My problem's always with the art. I always struggle with perspective and relative sizes of objects. If I'm painting, for example, something multi-plane. That work that I showed you, that watercolor from the beginning of summer or end of spring, that one was so hard for me. But it was a big challenge that I accomplished and I was really happy about it. And this work should end up being pretty striking because the lighting contrast is very strong. Whoever's joining, I'm just painting today and I'm also taking questions. I'm a Tantra coach, so anything that you want to ask a Tantra coach, Tantra therapist, please drop in the comments. Our theme today is creative discipline and how important it is to actually embrace some skill, embrace some creative discipline that pushes your limits and that connects you with the natural harmony. When you're exploring the creation from nature, when you are getting in touch with something so supreme and beautiful that nature creates, how fulfilling and how amazing it is for the mind to work on that. Today, I don't know if your previous message was deleted or got lost somewhere, John. I just see today there in the chat. These flowers, for example, they have their own character already, like I sense it, as some hysterical, so to speak, character, very like demonstrative character, which is really neat. Wish my pencil was a little bit harder because this one is HB, but it feels like soft pencil. Да, собака моя, иди ко мне. Иди ко мне, собачка моя. Солнышко мое, иди ко мне. Не хочешь? By the way, I had one fun experience back in the day. Probably 2019 it was. I went with my new friend, photographer, to New York Museum of Modern Art. And I brought my paintings there. Thank you so much for the heart. So we went there in Modern Art Museum. I brought my paintings and we did a whole photo shoot in the museum. And it was the most amazing experience in terms of, I don't know, it was this disruptive social activity in which you break people's pattern. There were so many people. It was a Saturday and people were going on those, like, family chore museum visits. There were so many families who were just like with boring faces strolling through the museum just to like put a check mark that they were there, that they visited, that they culturally enriched themselves. And there I was exhibiting my own paintings. It was super cool. I was standing there like this with my paintings, and people were like, oh, what's happening? What's going on? There were some people asking me if it's a performance, if it is exhibit or something. It was super cool experience. I love doing such things because watching people break out of their routine, seeing how from just like automatic operation people turn into, oh, reality life is happening around. Wow, that's insane. So we spent Saturday in the museum doing this thing, taking photographs and just entertaining people, I guess. So everybody was like taking photos of me, asking me questions, what I was doing there. It was phenomenal. I also wanted to do my art sale in one city. I want to sell a painting. Really wanted to sell a painting, but I never did it, and I regret it so much, to be honest. I really wanted to do the same thing. Just go on the streets and sell it, or just stand and make it a precedent. Just make people wonder what's going on, type of thing. If you haven't tried anything like that, I highly recommend such experience because it's super liberating, and you start seeing how your choices, how your some simple thing that breaks up the routine, the pattern of the routine, can influence others. It will be a super lesson of this leadership and how you can actually brighten up the world for people. Because when you see how they light up in response to just seeing you doing something different, it's so valuable. It's so amazing. And plus, also, it gives you the sense of freedom that you can do anything you want. Everything else, every impediment on the way of your desires to do something fun is literally just an artificial concept. There is like nothing that's prohibited in a lot of cases. It's just some artificial constraints that people put on themselves. But everybody can lead much more. I mean, given that they have some skills and readiness to do that, everyone can lead a very fun life, I believe. Because, I mean, as I like to say in my videos and my streams, people oftentimes obey some imaginary social contracts that have nothing to do with actual rules, that have nothing to do with any benefits and so on. It's just all artificial stuff that doesn't bring anyone anywhere towards any happiness. Tim, I see your emojis. You feel free to verbally express what it is you want to express. Watercolors, by the way, are my favorite medium. I love oil paints, I love watercolors, I absolutely despise acrylic paint, and I love pastels. And watercolors are my favorite because they keep you at such a nervous agitation at all times. Imagine with watercolors, as you work on them, there is barely any room for mistake. There are some things that you can fix minimally. But when you start fixing watercolors, that oftentimes leads to watercolor looking very fatigued, watercolor painting. And we don't want that because watercolor's strength, its forte, is that it's very fresh. It's very clean. And when you start fixing all of that, when you start like rubbing something, trying to remove some lines, remove some strokes, diffuse them, that's when it starts turning into this fatigue. And that's why watercolors, they require a very strong degree of being very calculated as you're working on them. And that's so amusing. And the more you progress in watercolors, the scarier it kind of becomes, the more nerve it tickles to go through watercolor painting because you have accomplished so much already, and every sloppy stroke can effectively diminish your efforts. And that's why it's such an interesting mental game. And unlike in digital art, we're all spoiled by digital arts, I think, nowadays. Digital file editing. We know that we can do Control Z. In watercolors, sometimes my brain actually works like that. It tells me, Control Z, I want to undo something, but you cannot undo. It's just impossible. There's no such option. You're now dealing with consequences. And actually, in the yesterday's stream, we were talking about the fear of making decisions. Something like watercolors perhaps would be a very nice training for developing this ease and at the same time being calculated before taking an action. Because a lot of times people don't know how to operate in the large range of options. And that is something that can be exercised. Analysis in general. I remember my analytical thinking started developing very strongly when I was preparing for GRE exam, surprisingly. Because that demanded demanded critical analysis of texts. And you needed to find as many peculiarities in the text as possible. And then, of course, when I was going through the grad school, we had an exam after the first semester in which we were given some piece of research, some research paper, and we needed to criticize it. We needed to write an analysis what's wrong with that paper and how it could be better. And in that work as well, you start asking questions to the text, and it's a very, very fascinating, interesting thing to do. Because I think big problem nowadays, people don't, can you say, scrutinize what they consume? But it is a very, very valuable skill. And then, when you analyze actually certain processes that happen in your life, when you try to decide, when you try to make the best choice, that's also a very, very handy skill, obviously. It's a little bit tough. Like this. Thank you so much, Javier. Kiva. I wonder what these gifts you send me. Keep sending me gifts, guys. I'm really thankful for that. I don't understand what they are. I've never seen them before. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'm reading the chat. The chat is moving pretty slow today. It's kind of a relaxed stream for me. I usually talk non-stop about some issues, analyzing a bunch of stuff, a bunch of questions. Today I am just doing my thing and sharing my field. I don't know if anyone is enjoying it or how you guys are feeling about it. I don't know. It's kind of new format. Sega, hi. I'm painting today. preparing a sketch now and going to paint my flowers. I resumed the tradition of buying flowers, and these are for my some personal special event, some personal discovery. You know, I don't celebrate calendar holidays. I mean, you know me. If you're sticking around with me for some time already, you know that I have this almost that sounds like puberty, adolescent rebellion, but I have those peculiarities that I don't celebrate calendar holidays because they feel fake to me. And at the same time, I celebrate certain acknowledgments, certain discoveries that happen in my internal world and my internal life. So this was to acknowledge one of my things and let it grow a little bit. So flowers, they signify that discovery. And I'm very, very happy about it. So I like having them by my bed. And also another peculiar thing is that I love to sometimes take a break off a flower and sleep with it. That's you know, when you remember that you have free will, I sleep with flowers. Tim, thank you for sharing your emotions. I hope you feel better. Feels pretty sure. Can you see my dog? My dog. Маленький мой. You know, like I work as a Tantra coach, but about personal discoveries, they're still ongoing. I still make those discoveries through my internal work. I feel like in general, whatever you do, you're always going to be learning something. You're always going to be advancing in life if you don't stop, like if you don't like settle. So that's really cool. It's a huge creative process, ongoing process, and there's never fully stopping in that. And I super appreciate that property. That's why I'm a huge advocate to teach children to actually live in this creative flow, to live in this developmental greed, to constantly desire more and more intellectual development, more and more creative development, because that's the driver. That's the source of infinite inspiration, because you always want to excel in something more and more, and you always want to be on top of your feelings, of your life, and it's an incredible process. And so any mental work, any advancements you make in life, when they service your creativity, when they service your development, it all makes a very beautiful life. Very beautiful life. And I mentioned in the beginning, the biggest gift you can give to your child is to teach them creative discipline. Not just, again, just be creative. That too. But specifically the discipline, the hard pleasure, hard to harvest pleasure. This is the biggest gift, because your child will never be lost in life. If they've mastered this pursuit of satisfaction, actually achieving satisfaction through some creative discipline, they will never be lost. They will always have something to look forward to, something to do. And also another thing that I'm a huge advocate of is to introduce children to the heritage, human heritage, cultural heritage, specifically classical arts that have a lot of harmony in them, that have canon in them, And when children grow up and develop intuition, artistic intuition for harmony, what happens is that in the hardest times, they will be able to open some art book. And it's a good thing to actually have collection of some museum catalogs, museum books, the very, very beautiful ones with beautiful paper, with beautiful reproductions in them. They will always be able to open the art books and connect with that eternal source of love and discipline. That's inexhaustible. And it's the eternal source of energy. Even if you can travel somewhere to Europe, to European museums, to European well-known museums, to connect with art directly, you can still appreciate it through different media. This will diffuse, goes a little bit over the top. I have an idea actually to open a classical school of classical education. I don't know how it would work legally. Maybe I would have to make it a school of supplemental education. But that would be a place where children learn actual sciences. They would absolutely learn math and physics because they're languages of life, languages of material world. And they would learn classical arts and some disciplines, music, art, visual arts. It's something I would want to do because that's something that human renaissance is about. I believe in that so much. Because again, in the hardest of times, art, creation were something that were driving me forward, that were giving me energy at all times. It's a fascinating gift. Nowadays, I feel like a lot of children, maybe it's also the discrepancy between children who grow up in privilege nowadays, because with technology, what happens is that there's a huge, the split between the elites and people who are disadvantaged, it just grows. And maybe that's what I'm perceiving as a problem, as a phenomenon. But I noticed that children are so lost nowadays. They lose touch with their spark oftentimes and just go online brainlessly. Because right now I'm online, But when it starts owning you, it's a trouble, especially at a young age. And I know there's a lot of outrage online among parents because they're like, oh, don't judge us for giving iPad to kids because it's a hard thing to be a parent, la la la. Of course, raising a child is an art. Depending on your desires, depending on your mission for children, how you envision this to be and why you have children as well. It will take on different forms. But I don't believe that children should receive this distortion of their cognition through adaptation to technology before they master some functions, some complex functions in the analog world. When they can take the disordered matter, when they can take chaos and turn it into a piece, turn it into something ordered. Through that, they would perceive how nature operates. Because that's the assembly of proteins. This is the assembly of functional molecules in nature. And that's something that our brain translates as well, because the laws of creation, they are universal. So I don't think that it's ethical to introduce children to the digital things and rid them of the opportunity to properly evolve into a creative Homo sapiens. Might follow later when they're already shaped, but this initial spurt of development should be accompanied with prioritizing their discipline. And I really admire parents who actually embrace that in the modern world. Because that's actually, people like argue about soul. That's actually where soul is found. I don't care for any religious explanations of soul. It's something that flies out of the body afterwards and goes to wander around somewhere. I don't care about that. I think soul is quite visible, what we perceive as soul, in the living people. And it's a spark. It's a creative spark. It's a certain enlightenment that is born through devotion of self to the discipline. It's self-respect and being strict with yourself, as well as also kind with yourself. They don't negate each other. But recent generations, they start popularizing self-pampering in some destructive way. Kind of debilitating way. Pointless almost, When leisure is glorified, but is not balanced by anything. And leisure also, kind of pointless leisure. At the same time, when you look at cultural elements, like, for example, look at ballet. Ballet is quite sadistic. A lot of the art pieces, a lot of artworks, especially works of architecture, they have element of sadism, for sure. But then, how beautiful it is. How phenomenal it feels when you see the result of this discipline. And in general, when you are dancing, when you're singing, when you feel how you've developed your discipline in a way that it allows to conduct this divine spark, this light of creation through you, effortlessly. It's also the highest pleasure. It's literal ecstasy. And only through discipline you can unlock that feature. Only through discipline you can see, you can feel it. Because artistic discipline, development of skills, is the tool that enables you to communicate your emotions flawlessly. Sometimes I stumble upon some totally hysterical art that is, some shaking, some just emotional purge basically. And this emotional purge is just dissociating. It's not particularly pleasant to witness in a sense. It's off balance, I would say. There's a beautiful novel in Russia that's called The Razor Blade. And the razor blade concept is effectively about finding this balance, this unique balance that forms natural harmony. And it goes into discussion of relationships of a human with nature, relationships of a human with arts, with science, and how important it is to always seek this balance. And that's a very strong tantric principle as well. In Tantra, besides the concept of unity that we were talking about yesterday a lot. Thank you for hearts. We're talking about the concept of unity yesterday, but there's also the concept of duality. And duality of discipline and emotional awareness is what creates masterpieces. Emotional expression and this fluidity, the experiential part, will always benefit from creating a framework for it that is born of discipline. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm creating framework for more emotional, for more sensual expression. Because if we don't create that, yes, it may be possible to just, thank you, Louise. It may be possible to just paint right away. But I'm not the master enough for that. Because this structure would need to sit in my head. When I work with people, that skill is also quite useful. Because I need to be both emotionally, empathetically involved, and at the same time to be analytical, to actually be providing solutions, to providing suggestions, to be analyzing what they're saying. But in art, when you're working with actual tangible object, it is quite a thing. I don't know if I could accomplish that. It would be really difficult. It's much more convenient to first build some structure here. I lost a leaf. Where is it? There's a leaf behind this flower. Okay. Okay. Now what is this leaf? I'm lost. So this is our flower. This is our flower. And now I need to find the leaf. I was talking way too much, I guess. So this is the leaf, and it twists here. And then it drops off here. Whoop. And then there's the stem. Okay. So I think I found myself. More or less. And this is all going to be this extravaganza. This is a stem. This is a leaf. Then behind this flower I have this leaf. So this, oh my god. It's done going on. I think I'm seriously lost here. So, no panic. But actually, interesting thing about Russian education and American education. In Russia, we're not allowed to write anything with a pencil. We must write everything with a pen. And actually, in Russia, they take off points from your homework, from your any test, if there are corrections. So one of the big differences is that we're actually trained to think before writing things. And I remember my mom would rip my entire notebook if while doing homework I would mark something off. So basically two corrections in your work would take off one point off your grade. And we were not allowed to correct those things. Different children, they had different appliances to actually erase things kind of seamlessly, but it always was quite visible. But yeah, in America I was surprised that kids write with a pencil. Like, they have right to make mistakes. I don't know what's better. On the one hand, yeah, it's like tough school. On the other hand, people are quite different, and for some people it might just create neurosis instead of discipline and fear of making mistakes. and then problem making decisions and such, like we discussed yesterday. But that's, yeah, some difference there in mentality. I guess also translates to mentality. God, this will be so gorgeous. There's a leaf wrapping around the thing. Very beautifully. Pardon for the interruption, madam. What is the topic title? I didn't get to write it down. Kiwa. Thank you. Today I'm just painting and freestyling. Whatever you want will be the topic. I just couldn't not paint today. And I couldn't not stream today. So I'm in this interesting position. Decided to experiment if I can talk and paint. I don't know how this format will work for you guys. I understand that might be boring perhaps. But I'm very happy for those if you're staying with me. It's really pleasant for me. Just chit-chatting basically. So, this is our sketch. We've got it. So pretty, I would love to draw you. Go ahead, I'm pretty still. Grab paper and go ahead, start painting, drawing. Kiva. My God, I almost dipped the brush in my tea. Got water here. That's another one. I should mess up both bottles probably. I have 2 bottles of water prepared for when the water becomes dirty, such that I don't accidentally, nobody drinks it. Let me put some yellow paint in every bottle. Yellow and pink. Fiji, by the way, is the best bottled water in my opinion. It's so soft and pleasant. It's amazing. So I hope we're all ready to start putting watercolors in. Very extreme lighting will be super fun to work with it. You know, in watercolors, the best moment is when you put down all of the colors. And then you take a dark color and you start creating shadows. This is the scariest moment, but this is what makes everything pop. Have this palette. So we're going to start with the leaves probably. That's the most obvious move right now. Green, and actually let's grab some yellow. But do I want warm yellow or do I want more like lemon yellow? It's our first color here, and we're going to start putting it. You know that composition that I showed you in the beginning, my spring-summer one? That composition was so challenging because it gave me some discoveries of how to paint a sunny day. Literally, what makes a sunny day is super deep shadows. That's literally it. Because without super deep shadows, it doesn't look like a sunny day at all. So I'm gonna paint some leaves right now with big strokes. Big and juicy. We'll just cover everything beautifully. Hopefully beautifully. My dog is going nuts right here. Тихо, возися, маленький мой пупсик. What a peaceful day today, guys. It's amazing. So very well lit up things are more yellowish, but actually there is some area in which greens on the leaves will become colder. That's where I need to be mindful, because I don't want to just cover everything with this beautiful yellowish green and then steal the coldness from other areas. So I need to be observant here, where I put what. This one, kind of, maybe. Then the stems are quite cold. This leaf, this is the flower. There's some of this a little bit yellowish green, maybe. Let's put it. What are these? Luis. Oh, also I forgot, in the flowers there are also some yellowish things, but they're kind of dark and muddy. So they're dark, muddy, and with some reddish things too. So we're going to make something like this. And start putting these colors there. But then carefully as well, because on the flowers it quickly goes from greens to very fresh colors to very vibrant and clean pinks. So we don't want to soil them with dirty colors in the very beginning. Need to just like go while I have this color mixed very, very carefully. Just brush it through where it's applicable. And I'll show you in a second what we're doing right now. Colder pink. Maybe even a little bit more berry-like. Even more berry, I think. I need a little bit more berry. and then we'll freshen it up. We'll just dilute it a little bit. What would be fascinating if we still have a little bit of moisture there. Such that we can wash it. Serkan, hi. Let me show you. This is where we're at. Just beginning to colorize the flowers. This one goes in the shade and it becomes very dark, like very dark all of a sudden. In general, we'll have a ton of super contrasts here, and I want to make sure that I hit them all. Whew. Let's work a little bit on the cold greens now. I worked on the warm now. Now we'll go mix some colder green. Like such a muted green shades, hues. without going to some emeralds. Oh, now it will be super beautiful. I'll make this, and then I'll put some yellow here, and they will flow like those watercolors that everyone appreciates, and everything just starts flowing into each other. Put it like this. And now time for a yellowish thing. A little bit even warmer. Yellow. Whoop. I'll just do it like this. Did it do the trick? No. But just going to do it. Up. A little bit like this. Now more of this green. Herbally green. A little bit some watercolors. They're dark and they actually fell today, so I don't even remember which one is which. I lost kind of touch with them a little bit. They're just pitch black boxes. You can discern the colors. No, this is not the color. This is more that. God. This will be dark. So this is where we are. Looks fresh. Looks pretty nice so far. Oh, I forgot to depict this leaf. There's a super cool leaf that's like, I don't know why it's like this, but it has so much character. It'd be very interesting to actually paint it. It's I don't know why it dried out. It's like perfectly attached to the stem, but it's very old and has a lot of texture to it, which is always beautiful and interesting to paint. And I'll lie a little bit. Kiva, thank you. Oh my god, this one is super vibrant green. And I'm sitting on it here. Oh, this is very herbally color. I don't need that. Just be quite muted. And with a little bit of blue. Can afford to just flood it here. Because all tonal nuances on the sleeve will be towards the dark. And then we have this greenery here, down there. Oops. Got a little bit too brown color. Let's check. I think it's very coward of me to just sit like this and work so slowly, because I could, if I already worked out on this thing, if it was not my first watercolor in eternity, I would be able to just go with big, comfortable stroke, just go ahead and paint the whole thing easily. But no, I'm calculating, very meticulously calculating everything. And it doesn't always serve you, you know. I don't know what I'm doing right now. That's the problem. Before you put all of the tones, you cannot really identify what you're doing, because you need a lot. Everything is in relationship with each other. So you cannot just put one color and see what it does. It doesn't make any sense. You will be seeing it against the white paper. So it's not really telling of anything. That's why we need to urge to put down some of the background color. Because otherwise we'll be just doing this guessing game, whether it's good or not, totally unclear. So the background is virtually black right now, so it will be some super dark. I'll just mix brown and purple. And we'll start painting it because, as I mentioned, makes no sense. Just keep going without any clarity for what to expect on the back. I'm gonna mix brown, blue, and purple. See? How wonderful. A very crisp touch would be to actually leave a white border around the leaves, because that's what happens in reality here. The leaves that sit against the background, they have this white border, and this white border is so can add this little touch that is so special. If we can preserve it later, oh my god, it will be so good, beautiful. It'd be so cool if there was a way for me to paint such that you can see what I'm painting, actually. Would be amazing. Because you just get to stare at me doing the thing. But I think it would be more interesting if actually you were able to see what happens on paper right now. It's bleeding. It's bleeding. But I'm not gonna touch it because it's the background. Almost, so I don't care. Let it bleed. As much as it wants. The background is meant to be bleeding. actually. I'm scared to lift it up right now because it can start dripping. So, in a little bit, I'll show you how it's coming along. And we're doing that because I don't understand the tonal relationship right now. Against the white tells me nothing. I can't make good decisions regarding the next moves because of this lack of clarity. To me, in general, we had not argument, but we actually came to agreement. In one of the recent streams, some person said something about manual labor, how important it is to perform manual labor. And I agreed with him so much, because manual labor is not even manual labor as like digging something. No, just doing something by hand. I feel like it's so natural and it's so stabilizing. It's such a path to harmony. It's amazing. You do something by hand, and one self-esteem, craft something. I remember the moment when I, for the first time, imagine my own functioning solar cell. It was solar cell for space, some like high-tech stuff, but it actually was a full device that I from scratch produced. That was outputting electricity when you shine light on it. And actually was operating also the same as the model predicted, which was also an amazing thing about it. So it was a super cool moment for me that boosted self-esteem so much, because the moment you produce something by hand that has some function or that looks very beautiful, your self-esteem just goes, it balances itself. I really believe in doing such things, specifically for acquiring this very balanced self-esteem. I think humans are born, it also proves our evolution in terms of nutrition, in terms of acquisition of resources, how we produce tools. Because when you can produce tools, or when you can produce something valuable, which beautiful things are also valuable, you are going to be a very happy little Homo sapiens. So I think it's so natural and so important for us to do these things, as opposed to just sitting and scrolling. In general, I have this theory that going on social media is like, you know how sexuality and creativity are connected? But I feel like going on social media, you're effectively watching black and orange website, but for creation. So somebody went there, put an effort, and created something. And you're watching that while not creating. I think it has the same mental effects as black and orange website. But even then, the digital art is not as satisfying. Digital in general content is not as satisfying as producing something by hand. I don't know, like, to me it's super important to do something in the real world. That's why when the season permits, I do gardening. I do some things at home. I paint. I make my own clothes. So that's something, it's a huge part of my life. There was one pedagogist in Russia that was saying that instead of toys, you should buy your kids tools and blocks of wood and let them make their own toys. You know what? I tend to agree with that. Because that creates such a room for imagination. And especially, by the way, there's another thing, is creative free will. With clothing design, I sometimes struggle so much. Fruity cutie! Hi. I struggle so much sometimes from very bizarre thing. When I'm designing clothes, for example. By the way, here is where we are right now. I struggle from realization that I can make just literally anything. Of course, within some constraints of my figure, what would fit me. But virtually, I can make just anything. Anything. And I sometimes cannot fathom this concept of how it is to be able to make just anything. And I start fearing this freedom that I have. And so I came to conclusion that there must be some constraint, because when human is fully unbound in their pursuits, nothing will be done. That's why setting some boundaries is a beneficial strategy, actually. That can bring better results than just do whatever. I don't believe in that. At least doesn't work for me. Maybe I have restricted brain, restricted creativity though. But it's always something that just inspires you, something that imposes this barrier, some boundary, some law that within which you need to operate. And that actually ends up being quite liberating, for me at least. I'm lost in the weeds here. How come to have such a gap here? Let's see. Whoop. Such a pleasure, you know, right now just to sit and cover all of these things. And then everything will pop. And we'll get this desired clarity. Because this white stuff all over the canvas, all over the composition, is what breaks the perception. That's the hardest part about it, is that when you're just starting the composition, it's really impossible to sit and collect yourself. So there are different phases of work. The beginning has its own thing, has its own complexity. Then, as you're progressing, you start getting super bothered. Like imagine you colorize some areas of composition, and normally you strive to colorize as much area as possible all at once, but all of that whiteness, all of this puzzle going on, really distracting for the mind. You start actually, remember also from 13 steps of Tantra, I was talking about the beads and how our goals, our ideas can be like those sorted beads. But then when we combine them into one thing, one object, we assemble them, then we start perceiving them with more clarity. We can start working on it. That's the same thing. Imagine on the canvas you have patches like like color white, color white, color white, color white, and it's just unbearable. It's unbearable. You can actually witness this tantric principle in action. If you just start colorizing something and you have a bunch of white spots all over in between, it's really difficult to handle that for the mind. That's why we work with small amount of information, with assembled information, grouped together, categorized, and so on, such that if we need to solve the problem, we can locate our brain efficiency not to try and to grasp the reality, put it all together in one thing, trying to navigate that thing, orient itself in that thing, but such that we can actually use our analytical mind to solving the problem. And also in physics, for example, in math, there is such a genre of problem statement. When, for example, you open the textbook and they give you some story, it's like they do this story time. And they give you the problem that starts like this girl, this boy had these many of these things, then this device was performing in this way, la la la, under these conditions. So the first thing you do, you always break it down into the structured form. You give it some mathematical shape that you can start turning into formula instead of just some plain text that is just disorienting. Same works in life. Math and physics in general are such disciplines that are, I think, languages of the world. Really encourage you to study them. Uh-huh. And now we're going here. I think this is the spot. Yes, it is. I'm going to just throw the stone, but then maybe later I will be darkening some areas too to make things pop even more. Or clearing them a little bit. You know, I like all dressed up, I kind of prepared my vibe for this stream. But then I came here, started painting, and what? I don't care. Really. We're getting closer. I don't like the texture of this paper. You see? It's kind of gross on the leaves. Kind of collects the paint not in the nice way. There is paper with different grit and has better properties. But it also depends on the paint itself. Sometimes there are paints that are just kind of gathering instead of beautifully going around those textures. So it really depends on manufacturers. But yeah, some paints, especially I think the paints with white pigment in them, when they have, you know, there's clear watercolor and there is watercolor that is with white mixed in. So it's like chalky. I think that chalky watercolor, it tends to do this thing, and instead of beautifully working with paper texture, does this. So I kind of don't like it. I'm not happy about it. So close to finishing this part. We'll throw some pink there because I have some flowers here. So we can actually diffuse it towards the edges here. And we can do it like this. Go here. Diffuse it. Diffuse it, diffuse it, diffuse it. This one will be more green, so we'll mix this with greens. Boom, boom, boom. This green projection here. Whoop, whoop. And this flower, this a little bit. This will be background greenery. Just mix it with that background color now and just give it some diffusion here and such that it's not our pure background color, but some leaves going on there. We'll mix it all in. And we also probably could have done that in this area too. Let's just do it. Oh my god, it will be super gorgeous actually. Just going to paint some leaves that will appear like they are in the very back there somewhere. And that will complete our composition much better. Probably add some florals there. My goal right now is to minimize those white patches that are completely debilitating for perception and clarity of thinking. Up. Now, the last touch-ups here, I'm gonna go with some purple here on the bottom. I'm going to colorize this area and with blues, browns, maybe also a little bit of green, just to give it some illusion that there is some greenery going on in the back, which should be expected. And we're going to just colorize it here. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Where is my emerald color? Emerald color is something that I use a lot. Not this. It must have a huge indent in it. Oh, here it is. Found my emerald. Can I just put it here? Put it here, put it here, put it here. Just finish this bottom. Then there's some flower going on. Put some pink hues. But it's the bottom, so I don't care much. So here we go. Let's fill in our florals. Flowers and leaves. I think this water is kind of done. I don't want to spread it there, although our leaves are kind of dark for the most part. So let me analyze. Actually, this helps. I usually take photos of my works or look at them in the mirror. The background is so strikingly blue, makes no sense. And tonally, it's also it's almost black in reality. Let me use our previous water to finish the leaves, especially the leaves that sit somewhere in the background here. I'll just go with this color that already took. There's not much illumination going on, actually. It only seems like it's very lit up, but it's absolutely not. It's also brown. Where is my emerald? Hello? Let's see. Here. Found it. But it's not quite emerald that I need. I think it's too juicy for this. Yeah, it definitely is too juicy for that. It needs to be a little bit more herbally. Кусь, успокойся, пожалуйста. Хорошо? You know what's funny? Actually, I'm painting right now in real life. Can turn out to be absolutely bad. But I somehow don't worry about it. That's like vulnerability, you know? In fact, it actually doesn't make any difference, doesn't make any sense to worry about showing some things or not showing them. People, I think, take too much pressure when they think about these concepts because, I mean, what about if, for example, right now, I paint something disgraceful here, something that nobody likes, and so what? Or if I paint something that I don't like, so what? There is like nothing that can dissuade me, for example, from pursuing this work right now. Yet it's something intimidating sometimes for people to do such things. Why? I have no idea. I guess you know what? I actually was criticized so much in my life for my work. In art school, my teacher was very, like, what would be considered rude. He was super rude guy. He was always saying exactly what he was thinking without any compromise. He would just express himself in the most in the most direct terms, I should say. So he would just speak sometimes in obscene terms about your work, and then you like get up and I'll fix it, and you get up, and he turns it into some artistic miracle, and you just watch there, and you're okay, good, I guess, good to know how to do it now. So after you go through that multiple times, you just start not caring about these things. It turns into something so normal. You just feel totally neutral about it. And then was going through my grad school. In my grad school, my advisor was exactly the same as my art school teacher, and he was also saying just everything in the very open fashion, very open and unhinged about your work. So you just eventually get completely desensitized to that. Like, no, okay, criticize them, and criticism is good because people pay for that. People pay for reviewing for getting their work reviewed. It's totally normal. Pardon me for the interruption once again, but I decided to title my notes Freestyle Thoughts. I hope that is good enough. Thank you so much. Yeah. Freestyle notes. Yeah, freestyle thoughts. Freestyle notes. Perfect. So, eventually, yeah, stop caring about that. You start looking at things beyond the criticism. You remove your ego in a sense. You remove your ego from from what's being said. Your priorities, for example, to have good work done. You want your presentation to be good. You want your data to be good. So you just remove yourself, and there's nothing that can be hurt by that. That's why when I went on YouTube, I was so prepared for YouTube, because on YouTube people are incredibly unhinged too, because there's literally concealed personality, there's no direct dialogue. People can say whatever they want. And just learn to create safe space for them, even. Because, yeah, you go on YouTube, it's expected, kind of. Have those types of interactions. And you treat it as some norm. It's not something extraordinary. Everybody comes to you, you chat with them. Whatever they have to say, you listen. But you don't take it really personally. I mean, it's not worth taking it personally. It's not productive. Oftentimes, it's just not productive. So if you, for example, want to start making content, this is my lesson about it. Embrace criticism. Embrace it. Grow out of it. Grow out of attachment to criticism. Of course, there will be some people who have some influence on you. When they criticize you, it starts feeling unbearable sometimes. But in most cases, criticism is totally easy to handle, I think. It should be easy to handle. And that's like when people talk about vulnerability, showing yourself. That's a lot of big words, a lot of like emotionally charged words, but I don't know, I struggle to get bothered by those things oftentimes. You know what you want, you can do what you want. Sometimes you make good jobs, sometimes you make a bad job. It's worth acknowledging what's good, what's bad. If someone aids you in that, it's good. But also you can have your own opinion about your job. It's also who you entitled to be qualified to give you criticism. It also matters. Because if just anyone's words can penetrate your heart, your mind, then you don't have good institutions. You might not be confident enough in what you're doing. Then it's a good point to revisit your relationship with your work, with your craft, and why you're doing it. But in general, I don't know. Маленький пришел. Ты мой хвостик. Пустомчиком, иди сюда, скажи всем привет. Иди ко мне сюда, малыш. Пришел. Пришел Любавич мой, пришел мой сладенький. Пришел мой маленький. Ты будешь с мамой или с матерью? Все, вот он. Все, мой пес пришел. Я тебя очень люблю. Птенец мой. Моя колбаска. My dog. I think that said, painting will not be my go-to live streaming thing. Instead, it is a somewhat unique thing when I literally felt urged to do it. And on the subject of my coaching program, on the subject of my system, on the subject of Tantra, I think it's a really good thing to actually embrace it and show how it can be done, how it feels when you follow your instinct, your creative instinct. Because if I was to reject myself the opportunity to paint today and chose something else, I would be in the internal conflict. And internal conflict would not be resolved until I fulfill this need of mine to paint. And then I would live with it. I would live with that disappointment. And who needs that? It's not productive. I don't know why I left this whole piece blank. I have no clue. Оп. Маленький мой. Маленький мой, дорогой. It's very calm today. Chat is slow. Madam is painting. I'm taking notes. The atmosphere is quiet. Yes. Do you have any advice for creative discipline for a beginner? I don't paint. You mean what to choose? What to do? Creativity. I mean, you probably do have some things, but you can start by writing things down, because the difference between just a thought, between some concept that comes to your mind and the written piece that has some value, that has some artistic substance, is in refinement and in discipline. So if you have some thought, some concept that you want to formulate, or something that you have formulated for yourself, then you can start by writing it down. But then you don't stop there. You start thinking how you can enhance this artistic piece, how you can enhance this text. Maybe you can express this thought in more concise fashion. Maybe you want to reword some things, to add some complexity. Maybe after you have written it, you will see that there are different layers to that concept, and you will want to elaborate on them. So this would be my suggestion, to start writing things down, because thoughts always come to our head. The thoughts is something that always comes to us. We always live with them, we always produce them. And the difference, again, this is the difference. The refinement embellishment, filling it also with imagery, filling it with metaphor, striving for some textual elegance, enhanced literacy, perhaps adding some complexity of language, but carefully without turning it into some vulgar, pretentious piece. So that will be what differentiates the artistic piece from just a thought. And this is something, what is that? This is something that anyone can do. I think I have paint on my eyebrow. So that would be my advice. Creative discipline. And you will see how just refining the text, the simplest essay, the simplest paragraph, will be turning your brain to think, how can you beautify it? Where is higher harmony found in this? You'll be fascinated with how much effort your brain can actually spend into turning this text into actual piece of beauty. So that would be my advice for you. If you don't paint, music is another thing, but they all require a lot of training. If you just want to get the flavor for artistic discipline, then text is something that every literate person can start working on. Then for those who use, it's probably not the good advice. But also, you can start looking at your entire life actually as an art piece. You have some place to live, I assume. You have your body, you have your wardrobe, and you can start turning all of these spaces into artistically filled environments, objects with some artistic intent. So you can find a lot of mundane things that can be turned into art. You can serve your food in artistic fashion. All you need is just a few appliances. It's not something expensive. It's not something extra. You don't need to invest a lot of money into enabling that. But you can serve dinner. You can set the stage. The table can be a stage for dressing, for invigorating this mundane process with something deeply artistic and deeply stimulating on many layers, many levels. Something that sparks imagination. You can find some music for that. You can dress up. You can set up lighting. Try setting up lighting. It's also a very interesting thing. You change the ambiance so much by just swapping general lights, or I don't usually use ceiling lights. I don't like it. But if you have ceiling lights, you can swap them with some lighting that's hidden. Suddenly your imagination starts working. And from just dinner, from eating like an animal, literally like an animal, right? We eat, it's something animalistic for us. You turn it into something that lets your brain journey in the world of fantasy, imagination, sensory experiences. How beautiful is that? You can always find an opportunity to invigorate your life with artistic discipline, I think. And the creative discipline in different arts, dancing, music, painting. All of these things can be picked up gradually, but if right now you want to try it, you can do it. That's a lifestyle, in effect. Then when you do decide to pick up some art, you can start with things that are more with your body. You can pick up on choreography, singing. You can produce sound. You don't need to learn the instrument. You can produce sounds. You can record yourself to see how far you are, how far you are in matching the notes of the melody. Because we have internal hearing and we have external hearing when we produce sounds, when it comes to music and singing. So you can start singing and you can start refining that skill. Dancing. You can start dancing. There are practices. As a Tantra coach, it's an important thing to develop both the experiential part and observer part. And when we talk about performative arts, when we talk about this artistic discipline, then we're talking more about a more regulated thing in which we're mastering something, and that inevitably comes with an observer with a lot of control. But for us to transcend to a higher level of self-expression in which we can conduct something very special, very epic, effortlessly, we develop this very complex language, expressive language, through learning the discipline. And that allows this different level of self-expression. But then the second facet of it is experiential thing. So when I teach people to go back in their body and start experiencing things, this is when dancing, for example, or artistic expression becomes purely intuitive. We remove all the judgments, we remove all the discipline, and we only are experiencing it. So here are two approaches to that. And I'm pro balancing both, because without being able to experience things on a very animalistic, very, let's word as primitive level, we will not be able to feel the pulse of life. We're not going to feel very grounded. We're not going to feel this primal passion. But at the same time, the higher self-expression gives us this unlimited fulfillment, gives us this unlimited, unfathomable in its depth language of expression. So both of those things are quite important. But then again, when it comes to creative discipline, it's a very satisfying toy for the brain that will always keep you hooked, that will always keep you looking, striving for more, that will always allow you to challenge yourself. And when you have something to look forward to, this is when you actually receive the life force. Because a lot of people, they don't have anything to look forward to. They exhaust different and easy entertainment, and they cannot be entertained by it anymore. It's as if you download some simple game on your phone, you know how to play it, you played it 20 times, you get disgustingly bored by that. Your brain will be irritated. You will be irritated to play this game. And this is how easy entertainment that doesn't involve any effort feels. So there are different facets to that. Let's see. I'm actually not so happy with how it's coming along, but I mean, I'm so far away from completion. I probably will take a break for now, but we'll be finishing it soon. I want it to dry because I have a lot of wet spots that are dry, so when I start working on contrasting things, then it will be a little bit of disaster if I start blending it up. Let's just chat now. I hope we can watch the replay of this live later again. Yes, travel to Terabithia. Absolutely, I will save it. Actually, I remember the movie about Terabithia. I watched it in Russian, so I don't know how to pronounce it properly. But yeah, there will be the replay. What creative discipline resonates with you the most? Can you share with me, please? What would you want to pick up? Okay, I can't stop. I see stuff that I can correct on my painting and I want to continue. Music, so awesome. Which instrument, or do you want to sing? What in terms of music excites you the most? Especially music for film. Oh, that's amazing. If which, by the way, movie genre do you like? Which movie genre would you like to write music for? Thank you, lovely people, for the notes. Orchestral music. Very nice. And if you want to share, like, if there's an idea of a movie that you would like to write a soundtrack for, would be really cool if you share it, because that's something very interesting. Dramas and short film. Is there any movie that you would recommend watching that to better understand the genre that is of special interest for you? Because I have not, I'm not very well rounded in terms of modern cinema. I think I stopped watching movies that are like new movies that come out probably after 2012, 2010 maybe. So I'm not really versed on what's being done nowadays. I remember I was on transatlantic flight and somebody was watching some movie that creeped me out so much. It was a very CGI'd movie that was depicting, it was with Jared Leto, and it was depicting some super crazy scenes. It was such a crazy movie. It was the person near me. We were sharing we were in the same role, so I just looked, peeked what they were watching. And it scared me, genuinely scared me. It was, I don't know, very sensitive stuff to me. So if I watch movies, I regress in time very far. And I like classical cinema. And actually, if you want to become a movie soundtrack designer, would be so nice, if you could cooperate with some independent creators, because that's where you would get the most creative freedom. I mentioned it somewhere. Recently, I got exposed to the new movies just overhearing them. And I realized that a lot of times the soundtracks are almost the same, as if they just recorded some soundtrack and they just keep using it for all movies. Or I have this impression. So I feel like um, cooperating with some independent movie makers, especially European ones, because I think European movie school is still kind of in a more artistic plane, would be a really, really cool outlet, because it will allow you more self-expression there, more originality. Because if we think about commercial movies, that's where it gets a little bit boring, in my opinion. Music brings life to movies. I'm sorry that I'm talking, by the way, so slowly today. I'm just, again, I resumed painting. I couldn't stop. So my brain is a little bit multitasking right now. But yeah, would be super cool if you could get into indie movies. Also, who knows, maybe you could direct something yourself. Imagine how that would be. I wonder if anyone, by the way, makes movies um, that are about life, about love nowadays. You know what I noticed? Russian cinematography. It went in this super darkness several years ago, and I don't. And I, it's so sad, kind of. There's no variability in the movies. Everybody just tries to depict something shocking, something dark, and then it steals the richness of life. I feel like the actors nowadays, they just they need to sell two facial expressions, and that's it, and the movie is done. Yeah, I saw some videos that show movie scenes with their original score and then with different music over top, and makes huge difference in the feel. Yeah, you know what? I watched the Scary Ocean thing with different music over it. But then people write that Scary Ocean is still Scary Ocean, even with very cheerful music on the background. But you know, like with any skill, with any talent that you may have and you want to develop, it was important to prepare for multiple years of training. Sometimes people abandon things too soon. I've met people who abandoned everything, super talented, but then they would just not be willing to go through some difficulties. And then I watched a woman, she raises her granddaughter. And she has a rule. Her granddaughter goes to a bunch of different schools. Like she studies actorship, music, then some intellectual developmental things. And they have a rule that when her granddaughter says that I don't want to do it anymore, she tells her, let's wait 2 more months. You will try to do it, to do your best at that during those 2 months. And then we'll see. If you still, after 2 months, feel like you don't want to do it, then you can abandon it. And she found out that the girl never actually abandoned anything. It's always, almost always, it's the temporary difficulty. Maybe some fatigue that can be just, you can just rest. But it's almost always worth it to just keep pushing through something that you love and keep striving for the perfection, for development of skill there. It also depends on character and your intentions in that area as well. But sometimes, yeah, people go take some wrong turns in life, so to speak. Maybe not wrong, but just a little bit not productive turns. And that sometimes puts pause on living in their best self mode, let's say. And that's where people sometimes need guidance, need some outlook on what they're doing. It's very important to have the circle, to have an environment that is conducive of development, such that there is this accountability in the times of difficulties. And moreover, it's not just this heavy feeling accountability that you have a duty, that you must do something, but just some circle that will remind you of who you are and why you're doing things that you're doing. So that's a very valuable thing to have in life, to have the community that will be encouraging your best actions, best development. So I wish you all to have such crowd. And of course, you can also stick around here, because I think you may find such crowd on my channel. Maybe eventually we'll develop a community of like-minded people when we discover more people. And we will have this beautiful community in which people will be sharing their pursuits, their achievements, how they enjoy life, how they develop. And this will be this sharing of inspiration. That will be the space where people can remember about who they are, especially when their life gets a little bit harder. So maybe we'll do something like that eventually. Because, you know, sometimes it only takes just to sleep poorly one night to start questioning literally everything in your life. That happens. I like the part you said, what fun is there in internal turmoil Choose art. Yeah. The training is the tough part. Oh, thank you for the heart. The training is the tough part. It can be, but then if you are embracing specifically your talent, something that's your gift, then it is tough sometimes, but usually it's not. I don't know, like for me, art school, for example, was the happiest place on earth. It was the happiest. Even when it was a little bit hard. Of course, we had a little bit looser discipline there than in the normal school. But besides that, there still was discipline, and there were still some difficult things. Exams, a lot of structure, and in general, our work was highly regimented there. We were studying the classical art school, so there you have criteria of performance. It's not just like, look, colors on the colors and concepts. No, it was not like that. It was actual art, and we had grades, we had diploma in the end, and very strict teachers sometimes. But in terms of creativity, it still was pretty conducive of fun things. And we had a very nice community there. Literally everything. Yeah. I guess that's when dedication is needed along with training. Yeah, when it's the rush, the internal rush to perfect something. It's the internal rush to be a master. And not through arrogance. You know, there is this thing that being an artist is kind of arrogant in a sense. When you're showing your art pieces, then you're just showing off, you're bragging, you want some approval or something. It may seem like it from the outside. But when I think about mastery, to me, purity of mastery has none of that. You know? You don't brag about eating. You can share the pleasure of eating, but you don't feel like you want to brag about eating. For an artist, when you actually do something that you are naturally inclined to, for you it just becomes your metabolism. You're just celebrating the beauty that you create without even any outlook on yourself. You're not looking at yourself in that moment. It's not something that you're concerned about. You're just painting, you're creating something just because it comes out to be so. It's your natural function. But then when you start becoming, for example, a businessman artist, when art starts being blended with business, when there's some performance needed, some, I don't know, prize appraisal needed, when there's some whatever. This is when you start thinking about it in some other ways. How to monetize it. This is when you need to be competitive. This is when you need to start seeking other things. But when it's pure artistry, there's no ego. I can show my art and be like, wow, look at this amazing art if I like it. It's not arrogance, in my opinion. It's just, look what came out. I conducted this through me. And it's absolutely unbound from my ego or anything. It just happens to you. Or you allow it to happen to you. The very cool thing is remembrance, when especially people used to do something artistic, but then they had this mundane life. They somehow stopped. And the best thing is remembrance, because that's what usually pulls people back on track in life. Creativity. It's a very beautiful process because I have friends who went through this thing. When they abandoned their arts, they forgot themselves, they let themselves drown a little bit in some depression and whatnot, and then they start doing art again, and they bloom, and they become so happy, and suddenly everything starts exciting them. Everything starts coming to place. And every problem starts being solvable. And everything is suddenly starts being worthy of effort. Because I made this short about the structure of life and how sometimes people just don't know what for to take care of themselves, what for to aspire for things, what for to try, until they discover their creatorship. And art is only one of the forms of creatorship. You create in your thoughts primarily. You create in your intentions, you create your life as I described. A simple dinner can turn into an art piece. Good points. Business changes perspectives. Yeah, it changes, it adds an extra role for you. You need to be aware of that. Because for example, I like making my clothes. Absolutely wonderful art. And sometimes I start thinking, what if it was a clothing brand? What if I was to make something commercial? And I start thinking and it starts sounding totally differently. The ideas are totally different. The approach is totally different. And then it's important also to develop good taste. And good taste is actually very easy to develop if you just look at beautiful things. It's very easy nowadays, especially if you start commercializing your art. It's really easy to start making something that's not so tasteful, but something that people, for example, will find popular. They'll make it popular for you. And rarely it corresponds to something that can withstand the test of time, that can become classical, that can carry this beautiful harmony. What happens nowadays, actually, such funny observation I made. A couple of years ago, lived in the apartment complex where a lot of corporate people lived. And a lot of corporate people lived in these contemporary-looking apartments. And what they had there was very hilarious, very comical. You know how in Soviet years, people had just a few items in general in the market. There were state factories that were producing things, and those state factories literally made all furniture that people owned. They made all clothes that people owned. So a lot of the things were very similar for them. And so we lived in this corporate apartment complex, and I looked in the windows, and I saw that most people have the same furniture. This like Amazon, / Alibaba things, AliExpress things. And so I was like, are we back in Soviet days? What's going on? It's literally normalized living with everything that's just some standard from AliExpress now. And that infiltrates literally every area of life nowadays. Very little diversity of things, of course, unless you go into some high tier, very like costly things. But good taste is developed through looking at classical things, classical shapes, classical proportions, harmonies, listening to harmonies as well, and then increasing complexity of perception of music. So those things, they all aid in development of taste. I personally, for fashion pursuits, I revisit collections of the past. I revisit how garments were made, how they were constructed, what were the principles there, and what differentiated them from nowadays garments, and also how to make certain things contemporary looking. I admire people that can make clothes. Project Runway was so fun to watch. Talents are worth admiring and embracing instead of abandoning. Absolutely. That's the how I say it, it's invisible fuel for life. Literally, it's your ultimate, not anchor, but the ultimate ship, the boat that you can swim on in the world. I watched for costume designer award winners at the Oscars. Neat. Very cool. I used to want to try mosaic art, like breaking pottery. Well, that's a cool one, by the way. Ceramics in general are so amazing. You know, I love applied arts in general because I love infusing my life with different beautiful things. And when we talk about clothing making, that's a very, very much applied art. And it's super satisfying to make because you have wearable art. And same with pottery, mosaic art, all of these things that you can put in your interior, for example. Super amazing. If you pick it up, I will be pleasantly envious for you, to be honest. Ceramics is something that I really want to embrace, but that requires home studio. Right now, I have no space to fit in, for example, ceramic working things or anything like that. But I really want to. I really love beautiful dishes and things like that. Jewelry was another thing, but jewelry making, I think, is toxic. So it's not a trivial thing. You need good PPE for that. Where did you go, Fruity Cutie? Are you still here? The conversations are getting interestingly cool. I only know how to knit, sew, and crochet. That's about it. Applied art is a new concept for me. Yeah, applied art is, you beautify everything. For me, even making this wall emerald green was part of applied art because, I film videos, I like to do photography, some like just objects. I like to watch, contemplate objects, and then dark wall makes everything pop. Dark wall kind of seems to make everything an art piece, like even transient artistic piece. So that's what I achieved by choosing this color, for example. But then, yeah, different interior decor is the easiest thing to embrace at first. There are, by the way, when you travel to, like, when you go to some Italian galleries, museums, they have those beautiful books where you can source object art. You can source so many ideas. It takes, to instantly improve your life. I have this advice for instant improvement of life. If you first of all, clean your space, and then if you have, just look through some art pieces. They always will be elevating for the mood, for your self-perception. Your posture will be better instantly. The way you carry yourself will be totally different. There's no denying that. There are influencers that promote, for example, primal lifestyle, and I can't relate to them at all because the beauty and the energy that is locked, that is stored, not locked, it's stored and conveyed through art pieces that humans create, is so phenomenal. It's so pleasant to connect with it, and it's instantly elevating for you. It gives this breadth of experiences that are accessible for us on daily. Romanticizes our life. You know, there's a trend for romanticizing life. These things, they romanticize your life. They beautify it. They make it more poetic. And that's very cool. That's kind of this makes the soul sing. It's like almost on par with religious experiences, perhaps. And when you create your first thing by hand, when you create something, my God, it's ecstatic. It's so beautiful. These are the best moments. I don't know what I'm doing in my painting anymore. I'm not gonna show it to you yet. I'm gonna stand it right in front of me. And we're making some mess, guys. I don't understand what I'm doing where I, I'm not happy with how it's turning out. I don't know. Pretty messy. But we're still far away from completion, so too early to judge. I'm listening in the background, cutie cute, fruity cutie. Clothes making is another level of skill. Okay, awesome, you're still here. Knitting, sewing, and crocheting is a lot. What kind of things do you normally make? Nowadays, don't have much time, but made many blankets and sweaters. That's cool. That's so cool. Always like knitted blankets. Yeah, they're amazing. Clothing making is a super awesome thing. Really empowering. It's really empowering, and also, you know, you go sometimes to the stores. You go through online stores, shopping like in general. Quite exhausting sometimes. But you go to those stores and you kind of end up compromising. Sometimes they're fun ideas, designer ideas, but oftentimes it's just boring. It's not satisfying. When you make your own clothes, oh my God, it's so fun. There is element of discipline too that you need to go through. There is an element of overcoming for sure, because you go through tailoring. There are already patterns that you can modify, embellish them, make them like creative, alter them a little bit. But all in all, I came to conclusion that it's much easier to learn to make my own patterns and go from scratch. So I do this tailoring for every garment that I make. And this is where the most discipline and patience are required. And also some elements, I haven't learned all of the elements of clothing yet. I haven't mastered the making of the blazers, for example. Like suits are its own beast. So those things are still not accessible to me fully. I made my own coat, cashmere coat, but that's it. And there are some mistakes to it. And it's not the coat that you will find in some classical store, for example. It's a more free form coat. It doesn't have any boning inside, doesn't have any like proper things in the shoulder area and stuff like that. So clothing making, yeah, it's a multifaceted process. And this is where my artistic side and my engineering side, they blended together, finally. Because it is engineering. Largely it is engineering, and what makes it hard is that it's engineering of soft matter. Soft things that every fabric behaves in its own way, every fabric has its own peculiarity, and you just end up sometimes having a lot of unexpected fun, depending on what you pick. But how much it's worth it, I can't emphasize it, I cannot admire it enough, I think, because it's just so worth it to be able to do it and to do it. It doesn't get old for me. Like, I literally always look forward to making new things. I have my fabric budget, and my fabric budget, I always need to have some fabric to look forward to turning into a garment in my stores. That gives me a lot of happiness. Wait a minute, messy? No way, madam. If that painting is messy, then it's messingly beautiful. Yes, I made that word up. Go with it, guys, please. I was looking for affirmation videos and I found your live. This was better. Thank you so much. I'm very happy for that. That was meant to do while talking. That's awesome. It's a process. You know, it's not something that just start doing. It's something that you start living with. And going to be a very enriching thing. Just brain actually gets hooked up on creative things and creative discipline so much. People who don't do it regularly, they think that it's a chore, but in reality it's not a chore. It's something that brain really craves. It's something that you always look forward to doing. And when you're not doing it, you demand it. Like deep inside you demand it. Like today, my brain, my body didn't leave me choice. It wanted me to paint. It was a very clear thing that was communicated to me by my brain. So I had to do it. And if I didn't do it, there would be a rebellion, which would be some neurosis and whatnot. Am I here? Why is it not displaying? Do you know how to dye clothes? I don't. I mean, I know in theory, but can you see me, guys? Let me. Why is it not working? I can't see myself on the screen. Turn it off, turn it off. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay. I mean, if you can see me, it's okay. I guess it will be a more authentic experience. So anyways, need to look at the flowers, not at myself. You can see the chat. And nice. Dyeing clothes, there are several ways to do it. I mean, if you're thinking about tie-dye, for example, that's one thing. I didn't do this because I don't think that it matches my style too well. So I just never pursued that. But in theory, I know how to do it. And then when it comes to dyeing them, for example, with overall dyes, when you throw them in the machine with some paint, then I've never done that. But I also know how it's done because I was considering doing it for some garment. Don't remember which though. Actually, I mentioned that tailoring is one of the things that is really like challenging in clothing making. It's actually really enjoyable. This is where the challenge is. Sometimes the challenge also comes from the fact that some elements that take a lot of effort, a lot of very patience demanding work. You kind of know, you know how it should look in the end. You know how it's done, but you just do this job over and over and over and over and over and over, working on some elements over and over and over and over. So that's where it may get a little bit difficult. And then sewing, with experience it comes. Sometimes I look at my first garments and they look so funny. You look inside and it's absolute nonsense. But that's the experience. And you gotta start somewhere. I used to, by the way, when I first started making clothes, I used to use patterns. There is German magazine that was around since 1950s, I think, or 1940s, 1950s, I think. German magazine probably was since 1950s. So that magazine was very popular in Russia. My grandma has a collection of them. My mom has a collection of them. So it was just our family heritage. Yet what's interesting is that my mom never taught me how to sew. She was scared for her machine, somehow. She was scared for me handling her machine. And I always was looking through those magazines because they actually have some stylish patterns. So I just subscribed to their delivery and I got their magazines. And that's how I started. I also ordered some magazines in Italian, just for some reason fancied me. I ordered them from Italian, in Italian language from the 80s. So it was 1980s, 1990s. I ordered a couple of versions. And this is where I started learning sewing. My first garments were with that German magazine, Burda. But then I realized that their patterns are for people with totally different body type. There were some things where I could not, no matter what, I could not fit those clothes. And then after I struggled so much with fitting, I just said, screw it. I'll be making my own patterns from now on. So I bought myself a textbook on pattern making. And that started the most creative, the most interesting path for me. Because with pattern making, when you know the foundation, you can make virtually anything. There are some elements that you just copy and adapt to your garments. Because there's of course some SOP, some standard operating procedure for different things. But all in all, it turned out to be much easier to just start making my own patterns eventually. Because I love tailored clothes. My figure is such that if I wear oversized, I look like a piano in the cover, you know? I need something that goes around my figure. Because otherwise, everything just hangs in a very bizarre shape. And that's so cool because I have the specifics that I have pelvic tilt, and that pelvic tilt makes every pair of jeans, all trousers, to fit in a way that's very strange. They basically just slide on one side and then bulge on the other side. So it's really kind of uncomfortable and disgraceful to wear. And I started making my own trousers, and they sit perfectly. I recently made trousers that sit so perfectly without any stretch that you can even do some gymnastics in them. That was my victory, but I suffered so much through that project. Oh my god, it was really brutal project. I listened to some lecture from a tailor online, and he was giving this alternative method of tailoring trousers through some tilt, and I altered my pattern to add more tilt to it. And oh my god, I went through such a purgatory with that. It was absolute nonsense. But in the end, the result was so good after all the struggle. I don't know where I ended up. If I should have cut the pants and then traced the pattern, because I did so many alterations already on the trousers themselves. I don't remember what I did. I literally was just adjusting just everything at that point of desperation. but the result was phenomenal. Yeah, even if it's just the three of us here in the chat at the moment, doesn't stop the cool conversations. It doesn't. We're listening and learning. Amazing. I'm very happy. Yeah, I love the chat community here, even if it's small. Yeah, it's very nice and purposeful. It's so inspirational. Travel to Terabithia was actually came up with this, pursuit of new ways, and it's so beautiful right now. It's very cool to share experiences, and actually, experience of someone who started something. I started sewing when 3 years ago. I was what, 29, 28? And that's when I started. It was my childhood dream all along. And then remember, I made my first big money. Like I started working at the corporation, and I was like, I'm just gonna buy myself a sewing machine. Why not? So I got myself a sewing machine, and I started, and I became so comfortable with that over the years. It's really cool. And then the progress is easy to trace too. One of the things that I did, my priority was to master the premium treatments of the internal parts of the garments. You know how luxury brands put, like, instead of just overlocking the edges, they put bias tapes there, they do different like cool treatments. So that's what I strive to do in my garments too. Unless I get too caught up on tailoring, and then I end up doing so many alterations that it kind of loses its relevance. But yeah, I usually get into this rush of tailoring, and it becomes my sport. It blends art with sport because it becomes this intellectual and also the work of willpower, so to speak. The work of willpower and bringing vision and perfection to life. That's a super cool thing. And again, in artistry, that never ends. You can always pursue for more. You can always push yourself. You can always push the limits of what you can do. And it always will cater to you new opportunities. Like in relationships oftentimes. If relationship is functional, you can always pursue new heights. You can always pursue new things. You can always get surprised. You can always get some freshness out of it. Same with art. You always are catered some challenge that will bring you to the new level, that will bring you this new leap of development. It's super amazing. Actually, while I was painting, time flies. It's crazy. It's been already 3 hours. 3 hours. It's nuts. I'll probably be finishing soon. And I will be thinking how to organize a community. Because if this becomes a theme, which actually I was always looking forward to making it a theme, that where people become the creators, when people start doing things, when people pursue this new discipline, it will be really nice to have people just getting together and discussing their pursuits, discussing what they're doing. Need to see how to organize it because it will be really beautiful. Because it's, there must be some alternative in the culture. Yes, 3 hours. The culture nowadays gets so diffuse. It gets so like, new movies don't come up. They only make remakes nowadays. Culture kind of feels like it's dying. And then connection of people with culture also is dying. It's one thing to like sprint through the museum while you're on a trip somewhere. But then it's the other thing to actually live through the experience. And then it's the third tier of experience when you actually can relate in it in some way, when you actually understand the artistry, because you yourself are part of that group that's capable of artistic self-expression. You understand at a much deeper level, and thus you can communicate with an artist through their artistry in some beautiful ways. Just very fulfilling life, I should say. Very satisfying. I think my attention was into the conversation so much it didn't seem like 3 hours passed. Yeah. There must be some alternative in the culture. Yeah, everybody should find their own spot. And then sometimes, I think about myself. It's really hard for me to find a domain in which I could find some, not understanding, but perhaps shared experiences rather. And that involves such a comprehensive work. Sometimes it feels like it's just impossible. But then it's just an illusion, because there are many more, if I exist, then many more people exist who also crave the same thing. By that logic, the value of distributing this message is high for some people who just haven't found me, for example, yet. But who will also benefit from having some related environment, such that they can just feel some belonging. Or even not belonging in a way that I cannot survive without a group. It's actually the more individuated you become, the less you need a group. But just for pleasure, just for fun, to know that something important for you is alive, Something important is alive, and you can witness it, you can touch it, you can connect with it sometimes. This watercolor is getting tired, I think. See? Oh, thank you so much, Kiva. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, madam, for the conversation, stories, insights, and help with notes. This is a show of appreciation. I really appreciate your contribution. It's really pleasant. Thank you so much. Love the yellow color in the painting. Thank you. Yeah, the yellow one is pretty good, but the flowers ended up being a little bit fatigued. I always do this. That's my issue. I need some person who would be standing and like telling me to stop. Somewhere, you know? Because I don't have institutions apparently in my head that would just tell me that internally, or I just don't practice enough, which is fair. Agreed. No need to thank. No, there is a need to thank. It's very beautiful. It's very pleasant. I'm very happy about it. It gave me a lot of, it gives me a lot of joy to feel the transaction of value, so to speak. It's really cool. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. My idea in general was to paint it in the daylight, because in the daylight it looked so airy. But then I was like, you know what? Artificial light also looks kind of interesting. Creates this dramatic contrast here. But now I'm like, kind of feel lost. But it's the matter of deepening the shadows, I think, at this point. Such that the light colors, they don't feel like dirt, and they feel like light colors. Make light colors light again through deepening the darks. So that's what we will try doing, and then hopefully it will bring about the freshness. Because you know, there's this, in watercolors with their transparency, there's this effect that is achieved when you start overlapping colors. You can make very nice edge effects. When, for example, you paint some object and then you go with the background a little bit touching the edge, and it makes super strong contrast there. That's something I love doing. You know, it was actually a very fun experience for me to literally paint with zero action today. It was compared to yesterday's stream. Oh my god. It was almost non-stop talking. Kiva was there. Although I'm not the best at painting, let alone decent, it's nice to hear and learn about it. Maybe sometime you can set up a top-down angle where only the painting is visible. It would be fun to watch. I know. I know. I was just like, will it be interactive? If it's interactive, then I should be in the view. If it's not interactive and I'm just showing my work, then it's gonna be the painting in the view. And then switching things up will be a little bit difficult, perhaps. So that was my mental struggle. But I ended up painting most of the time, so I could as well just put the thing. Instead of you looking at my hair part. Here we go. But more work needed. Probably it will be hard to reach chat if the phone is facing down. Yeah. I remember, wait, I remember the last stream. You took notes, Kiva. I'm fascinated by industrial design, especially household appliances, modern vacuums and hair dryers. That's an interesting take on that. That's something that people rarely think about. It was a lot of information at once. I had to watch the replay for last stream. Yeah, I know. It was nuts. It was nuts. It was 3 hours of almost non-stop, like... Fruity, that's a good idea. Yes, it is. It is a good idea. That's for the next time. But this is also the internal debate, is that what they deliver in a stream, you know? Because if travel to Terabithia, I don't know if you are here for the first time or not. We usually have quite a stream culture going on. It's usually quite nuts. We have a lot of interactive things. We usually have a topic, because I'm as a Tantra coach, I always have something to say. There are some things in Tantra, some things that are quite like applied to daily life. Then people send me their life situations, we analyze them. So there is a lot of activity going on. Chat moved very fast that time too. I couldn't even read my comments. Yeah, it was very high-paced. So today it's kind of more restful thing for me. That, oh, I just followed. Have to go now, sister. Thank you so much. Yeah, just you can get the flavor for what's happening, usually what happens in the streams by watching the recordings. Oh, very cool. Okay, Kiva, that might be a good thing to know because I sometimes make spelling mistakes. It's not too bad. No one really notices. Scott, hello. Good night, chat. I'll be watching for your spelling mistakes now. Everybody understands that it's moving fast, so it's okay. Plus, also, yeah, you want to address some issue on the spot and you type very fast. You have sign limit, so you need to condense your thought. It's totally understandable. Yeah, good night, everyone who's leaving. Bye bye. I will probably be signing off right now. This is what I came up with so far. And the most interesting part is calling. It's details and also contrasts. And that will be putting things in order. In order. No, why do this fruit? Okay, guys. Bye bye.